and a very warm welcome to this special telecast on Rajya Sabha television. The linens are out. It can mean only one thing. It's summertime in Peninsular India, and today I am in Chennai, the capital of Tamil Nadu. I'm in Chennai not to talk about the sea or the beach today, but I'm here to talk about Dravidian politics. I'm in the city to map the origins of the Dravidian movement and what led from a social movement to a political one. That's what I'm going to establish on this program. So join me on this journey. To better understand Dravidian politics as it is today, it is important to go back to the roots and go back to how the movement started. These three men were the initial proponents of the movement, Chettiar, Nayar and Mudaliar. Post which, of course, in 1944, the father of the movement took it forward. He is none other than E.V. Ramaswamy Periyar.
The year was 1916. The date, November 20th. It was on this day that the Justice Party, or the South Indian Liberal Federation, as it was officially called, was formed. Social justice was the fundamental tenet of the movement.
Education was a monopoly of the upper caste Brahmins. That is why 100 years back the non-Brahmin movement was there. Even before non-Brahmin movement, when Britishers came, they issued circular that one community, this is a caste-ridden society, and the privilege of the education and employment was the upper caste privilege, which is unknown, which is unparalleled in the whole of the world. That is why they want to feel, they demanded justice. That is why their paper contained the name of justice, and the party was popularly known. Even though the name of the party was South Indian Liberal Federation, etc., the party was known popularly as Justice Party.
The party, formed in present-day Chennai, had three founders, Dr. T.M. Nayar, P. Thigariya Chettiar and Dr. C. Natesa Mudaliar. Dr. T. Madhavan Nayar was born on 15 January 1868 near Tirur in Palakkad, then Madras Presidency. His father was a district munsif at Tirur, known for his academic proficiency. Nayar passed his matriculation exam a year in advance. He obtained his MD in 1896 in Europe and researched in ENT diseases. After returning to India in 1897, Nayar associated himself with the Indian National Congress. He died of heart attack on 17 July 1919. Sapiti Thigariya Chettiar was born in Egatur, Madras Presidency in Telugu-speaking Devanga Chetty family on 27 April 1852. Chettiar did his schooling in Chennai and graduated in law from Presidency College, Madras. Thereafter, he entered public life and served first as a member and then as first non-official president of the Corporation of Madras. He was also founder member and later president of South Indian Chambers of Commerce. He served as the first president of the Justice Party till his death on 28 April 1925. Chettiar was succeeded by Raja of Panagal as president of Justice Party. Born in Triplicane, Madras in 1875, C. Natesa Mudaliar was graduated as a doctor from Madras Medical College. In 1914, he started a hostel for non-Brahmin students in Madras Presidency. This marked his entry in South Indian politics. Mudaliar later brought together political opponents Thegaria Chettiar and Dr. T.M. Nair to form an organization to represent non-Brahmins. Mudaliar was expected to contest in 1937 elections to Legislative Assembly of Madras, but died all of a sudden in February 1937 at the age of 62. After winning the first direct elections in 1920, the Justice Party formed the government in Madras Presidency. It was in power for 13 years and became an alternative to Indian National Congress in Madras.
Early 1920s were also a time of a lot of discovery of several identities, and you also had the RSS being formed in Nagpur around that time. In South, the narrative was quite different, understandably, because it's always differed from the larger narrative. And here the narrative was largely a caste narrative. And it was against that backdrop that the Madras League was found, the Madras Dravidian League was found, which then later became what is popularly known as the Self-Justice Party, but is the South India Liberation Federation. So this was essentially to contest the concept of an India which is one, but India which is many in terms of castes and communities.
The Justice Party initiated several egalitarian moves like issuing a government order for public use of water from ponds and wells. Till then, certain sections like Adi Dravidars were denied access to public water sources. The principles of Justice Party were simple: equality and fight against oppression.
Social justice, gender justice, caste eradication, and opportunities for all. This is basically, and more than that, we want to protect our Dravidian culture. Culture is a broader word and which includes the language imposition and fighting many of our rights, including the state rights.
After it lost to the Congress in 1937 election, the Justice Party never recovered. Periyar A.V. Ramaswamy and his self-respect movement assumed its leadership. In 1944, Periyar transformed the Justice Party into the social organization Dravidar Kadagam and withdrew it from electoral politics. Erode Venkatapati Ramaswamy is regarded as father of the Dravidian Movement. He was a social activist who started self-respect movement and Dravidar Kadagam.
The nomenclature Dravidian was given by Periyar officially, and Periyar is the father of the movement, and everybody has accepted it, even though the precursor, the pre-runner was the non-Brahmin movement.
In fact, Periyar has three distinctions. He was the reason for the development of Congress Party in South. He was the reason for the development of communist movement in the South, and he is also the founder of the Dravidian movement.
Ramaswamy was born on 17 September 1879 in Erode, then a part of Coimbatore district of Madras Presidency. He had an elder brother and two sisters. He later came to be known as Periyar, meaning respected one or elder in Tamil.
Periyar means the great person. Periyar, that is the usage in Tamil, even in Tirukkural. Periyarai Thunaigol, Periyarai Thunaigodal, Periyarai Pedayamai, all these things. But in 1938, women, out of sheer respect and regard for Periyar, out of the selfless service to abolish the women's serfdom, Penniyen Adimayanal, all these things, no other leader has gone and fought for the women's liberty to that extent as Periyar has gone. And out of a deep sense of gratitude, the women's conference, they joined together, they gave this title of Periyar.
Periyar too, like T.M. Nair before him, was part of the Indian National Congress but resigned in 1925 when he felt the party was only serving the Brahmins. From 1929 to 1932, Ramaswamy toured British Malaya, Europe and Russia. In 1939, he became head of the Justice Party and in 1944 transformed it into Dravida Kadagam.
Brahminocracy. Periyar was fed up with the nationalism and all these things. He addressed a meeting at Salem in 1924. This was reported in Hindu centenary number. I am quoting with authority, 336 page. There he has used the word, unless the caste question is settled before the Britishers leave this country, there will be Brahminocracy in this country. That made this organization. It was a historic compulsion.
E.V. Ramaswamy's first wife, Nagamai, died in 1933. His second wife, Maniammai, who he married in 1948, continued his social work after his death in 1973.
Now that you've seen a short biography of the father of the Dravidian movement and you've understood how E.V. Ramaswamy became Periyar, it is also important to understand who some of the stalwart leaders of Dravidian politics are.
In 1949, E.V. Ramaswamy's Chief Lieutenant Annadurai established Dravida Munnetra Kadagam or Dravida Progressive Federation after splitting with Dravida Kadagam.
Though eventually they sort of came to power only in 1967, but about 10-12 years before that itself, they had decided possibly to make this transition. Of course, there were differences of opinion which we all know, which is why the DMK itself was born out of the DK or the Dravida Kadagam as it then existed. So the realization happened that there is only so much that a social movement can do, and the power to implement the changes that are needed in society were simply not there with that of any social organization. It needed a political base, and that is why I think this transition happened.
Over the years, many disagreements arose between Periyar and his followers. In 1949, several followers led by C.N. Annadurai split from Dravida Kadagam after an aged Periyar appointed his younger wife Maniammai to act as his successor to lead the party. Until then, E.V.K. Sampath, the nephew of Periyar, was considered his political heir.
There are two strands in that. One is that the DK was never interested in contesting elections, whereas Annadurai, who was then in the DK, always had this thing to contest elections because he felt to bring the social reforms into play, one had to hold power. So that was one. The other one was Annadurai was not very happy with the DK's position of celebrating India's Independence Day as a day of mourning. And then came the final breakaway when it was publicly made the reason that Periyar married a person much younger to him, thereby which kept Annadurai out of the race to party succession.
Annadurai was born on 15 September 1909 in Kanchipuram, then called Conjivaram, Tamil Nadu, in a lower middle class family. His father was a weaver, his mother a temple servant. They had an intercaste marriage. Annadurai was well known for his oratorical skills and was an acclaimed writer in Tamil. He scripted and acted in several plays, some were later made into movies. Annadurai was first Dravidian politician to use Tamil cinema extensively for propaganda. Born in a middle-class family, he first worked as school teacher and then as a journalist. He edited several political journals and enrolled as a member of Dravida Kadagam. As an ardent follower of Periyar E.V. Ramaswamy, he rose to become a prominent party member.
Anna was I can say that he was the first reformer. That is, he wanted Tamil Renaissance to come back. That is his contribution. So he attracted youth. He spoke in a language in which the youth can understand, and he had a large number of followers coming.
Annadurai's interest in politics made him join the Justice Party in 1935. On 17 September 1949, he and 4 other leaders, known as Great Five Leaders, along with M. Karunanidhi, then an emerging screenwriter, announced the formation of DMK in Robinson Park, in Royapuram in Chennai. Muttuvel Karunanidhi was born on 3rd June 1924 in Nagapattinam district, Madras Presidency. At birth, he was named as Dakshinamurthy after a form of Shiva, but he later changed it into Karunanidhi, influenced by Dravidian and rationalist movements that were against the use of names of Brahmanical gods. Karunanidhi entered politics at the age of 14, inspired by a speech of Justice Party leader, and took part in anti-Hindi agitations. Later he founded the Tamil Nadu Tamil Manavar Mandaram, the first student wing of Dravidian Movement. He started a newspaper for students that grew into Murasali, the DMK's official newspaper.
At a time when there was a pro-Congress sentiment across the country, how did the Dravidian ideology spread? This is one of the ways. Magazines, periodicals and newspapers carried the propaganda of Dravidian ideology, the Dravidian parties and Dravida Kalagam. This was one of the ways. The other ways, of course, was during the advent of the film fraternity. Several movie stars and members of the fraternity propagated the agenda of the Dravidian movement and Dravidian politics. Not just that, several leaders were great orators, and that's how they spread the message. Also, barber shops and tea shops were used to spread the message of the Dravidian parties and their movement.
It's always been the vision of many political leaders that places of common interest, where common people meet, should become places of political activity. In the case of the Dravidian party and its offshoot, the DMK, it was the barber shop, for instance. It was the cycle repair shop, which also used to hire cycles out. It was the tea stalls where people congregate, where people get together, and typically there would be one person who reads out a newspaper aloud, people sitting around them and then hearing what he says, and then debating furiously about it.
At the age of 33, Karunanidhi entered Tamil Nadu Assembly by winning Kulathali's seat in 1957. He became DMK treasurer in 1961 and deputy leader of opposition in 1962, and when DMK came to power in 1967, he became the Minister for Public Works.
He contributed much. See, he was a voracious speaker. He was a brilliant writer. He wrote movies. I think cine field has an attraction among the people. So he used the film media to reach out to the people. His Parasakti was a wonderful piece of his writing, which shows what is God and why God should be respected and what is happening in the name of God. Everything that one movie showed to the people. So he followed Anna's way, Periyar's way, and he used different media.
Before entering politics, Karunanidhi worked in Tamil film industry as screenwriter. He also contributed to Tamil literature, writing stories, plays, novels and multiple volume memoir. He was popularly known as Kalainar, meaning artist in Tamil. Murudur Gopalan Ramachandran, or MGR, was born in Kandy, Sri Lanka. In his early days, MGR was a devout Hindu and a devotee of Lord Murugan, and his mother's favourite god, Lord Sri Guruvayurappan. After joining the DMK, he turned rationalist. In 1953, actor MGR joined the DMK, popularized the party flag and symbol, which stood for secession from India, by showing it in his movies.
The Dravidian movement and Dravidian parties are associated with the colors black and red. This is the flag of the Dravida Kalagam. This the flag of the DMK, and the AIADMK is the same as the DMK with Annadurai on it. What is the significance of these two colors, black and red? We'll find out now.
Significance of black and red is black is the suffering of the people, and red is the sacrifice which we have to do to eliminate the suffering. That is the significance of those colors.
MGR was a cultural icon and one of the most influential actors of Tamil film industry. He was popularly known as Makkal Tilagam, meaning people's king. A philanthropist and a humanitarian, he became a DMK icon and is credited with the rise of the party.
He was instrumental in 1968 when Anna passed away. The election of Kalaignar as the chief minister is completely attributed to Puratchi Thalaivar MGR. MGR with his huge fan following, earlier period, even Anna is supposed to have said the entire victory of DMK in 1967, if there is one person he has to attribute it was to MGR. He clearly said that.
Mr. M.G. Ramachandran started off in life as a sympathizer of the Congress party. And then he and Karunanidhi were friends from the stage days, and they would interact with each other. And somehow Mr. M.G. Ramachandran and Mr. Karunanidhi started working together in films. Mr. Karunanidhi was a script writer for a lot of Mr. M.G. Ramachandran's successful films. And Mr. Ramachandran became part of the ideology of the DMK. And he was perhaps the most successful on-screen person for the DMK. And perhaps the most successful on-screen political person. And Mr. Ramachandran was also essentially a very political person. He would know the pulse of the masses, he would know what works.
DMK contested the state election in 1957. Karunanidhi won the Kulathalai seat, while other seniors like V.R. Nedunachesian lost from Salem. In 1967, DMK came to power in Madras province 18 years after its formation and 10 years after it first entered electoral politics. Thus began the Dravidian era in Madras province, today's Tamil Nadu.
When Kalaignar was chief minister, until then, for more than 200 years, there was not a single scheduled caste man who had become a judge in the Madras High Court. The first judge of the Madras High Court from a scheduled caste community was appointed by Kalaignar. Subsequently, he went to Supreme Court. Until then, Supreme Court did not have, for more than 250 years, Supreme Court did not have a scheduled caste man as a judge. This is the change. We had a chief secretary who was a Dalit. We had a police DGP who was a Dalit. We empowered them. We gave them, there were the people, but still their numbers were less. So after we came, we saw to it that every community is given their due respect and due position without considering the community. All are equal.
In 1969, the death of party founder C.N. Annadurai saw a power tussle between Karunanidhi and Nedunachesian. Most of DMK's MLAs, including leaders like MGR, favoured Karunanidhi as chief minister in preference to Nedunachesian, the senior leader. To pacify Nedunachesian, a party president's post was created for Karunanidhi. Nedunachesian became general secretary. MGR was appointed treasurer of the party. M.G. Ramachandran was vital in popularizing party's ideology, but a political feud between MGR and Karunanidhi broke out over the latter calling himself Mujib of Tamil Nadu. In 1972, MGR called for boycott of party's general council. When he went further, calling for a corruption probe, he was suspended from the General Council. MGR then went on to form All India Anna Dravida Munnetra Kadagam or AIADMK.
Mr. Annadurai dies in office. So during the first term itself, Mr. Karunanidhi becomes the chief minister towards the latter half. Then he calls for elections and he sweeps the polls. There is an overwhelming majority there. At that time, Mr. MGR, it also one attributes it to a clash of egos as to who contributed to the victory. That is one part of it. And it is also said that Mr. MGR wanted a ministerial portfolio. But Mr. Karunanidhi said either choose acting or politics. And that is another version to it. The third version was the difference of opinion over prohibition. But as people who are familiar with the way politics operates, it is not just that. There's something more than that. The DMK was growing as a party and it needed a counter. There were also attempts to create another party.
In 1977, DMK lost the assembly elections to MGR's AIADMK and stayed out of power till 1989. After MGR's death in 1987, the AIADMK split into two factions led by MGR's wife Janaki and Jayalalithaa. Jayaraman Jayalalithaa was born on 24th February 1948 in Velakotte in Mandya district, then in Mysore state, now Karnataka, in a Tamil Brahmin Iyengar family. In 1982, Jayalalithaa became member of AIADMK.
MGR's demise followed by ascendance of Amma, Purochitalevi Amma, who of course had a huge base of her own when she came into the party, added to the depth of fan following that MGR had, and all the workers who attributed their presence in the party to MGR.
Following MGR's death, his wife, activist-turned politician Janaki Ramachandran, rose to party's leadership under the support of R.M. Veerappan and 98 MLAs. She led the government for 24 days as the state's first women chief minister until the assembly was suspended in January 1988 and president's rule was imposed. The party began to crumble due to infighting and broke into two factions, one led by Janaki Ramachandran and other by Jayalalithaa. The 1989 assembly election saw the DMK regain power after 12 years in opposition, with M. Karunanidhi returning as chief minister for the third time. Due to its split, the AIADMK suffered heavily in the elections, with the Janaki and Jayalalithaa factions winning only 2 and 27 seats respectively. After the rout, the two AIADMK factions merged under Jayalalitha's leadership. The DMK government was dismissed in 1990 by central government led by Prime Minister Chandrasekhar, an ally of AIADMK, on charges that constitutional machinery had broken down in the state. The AIADMK swept to power in the 1991 assembly election under the leadership of J. Jayalalithaa, who became the second chief minister and the 10th chief minister of the state.
Amma came back in 1991 and she since then ruled over 5 phases in Tamil Nadu. And Amma is supposed to have given a very welfareist twist to the entire Dravidian movement. She'll be best known for her welfareist policies. 29 Amma schemes which are running today, all attributable to her.
So that brings us to the end of the first part of our 2-part series on Dravidian politics. In our next episode, we'll take a look at the present state of Dravidian parties.